Victoria was paralyzed, her eyes wide and her mouth a little open, too, in a gesture of great surprise. After a few moments, she began to laugh almost hysterically. "Now you makes fun of me. I leave, I am not nobody's buffoon," said Victoria. Stopped laughing and trying to leave. "Wait. If you leave without listening to me, your sister will have a hellish life with your aunt. Your mother may miss the only opportunity to survive or at least prolong her life, and you will not be able to escape the nightmare in which you live. Of the decision you make tonight could depend on the future of your family. I only ask you to listen to me for 5 minutes, and then you can leave and forget me, if you wish," William said vehemently as he stood in her way. "It's okay. I give you your minutes," she answered, still hesitating. He approached a table by the sofa and took a document, and handed it to her. "Taking," said William. "What is this?" Victoria asked suspiciously as she looked at the document with interest. "It's a request for custody of your sister, a request from my team of lawyers, so that you are appointed as her legal guardian, but not as Victoria Walker but as Victoria Mayborn, as my wife. And the request also asks for the legal tutoring of your sister for both you and me, as a couple, as husband and wife," answered William. Victoria saw what would be her married name in the document, along with legal slang about being able to offer a stable and beneficial environment for the little girl, especially from the economic point of view, but also from the point of view of the personal references of Lord William as father and legal guardian. "With that request, backed by my background and resources, it is impossible for us to be denied custody as a married couple. You should also see this," William said while extending another document. "It is a request to enter your mother in a medical center private where they develop a revolutionary experimental method for the disease of your mother, a very expensive method, that I am going to pay." Victoria saw the request confused and anxious, feeling her pulse racing. "I am willing to spend the amount that is necessary to give your mother the most innovative and extraordinary medical treatments, even to take her to the United States in a medicalized plane if she need. As for your sister, I will guarantee her future. Not only she will not have to get away from you and your mother, but she will receive the best education money can afford, and she will have the best opportunities in life. And obviously you will not have to continue working, you can dedicate to study what you want and have the professional career that you want, if you want some. I want you to see this too," said William, giving her another document. Victoria took the document with shaking hands and becoming more excited and nervous. "It's a legal marriage promise, a notarized document in which I promise to marry you, and if I do not keep my promise within the deadline, with that document you can sue me in court and demand compensation from £1,000,000, William said quietly. Victoria opened her eyes in surprise and saw him as if he had said the most shocking she had heard in her life. "Do not worry, if you do not want to get married you do not have to pay me anything, because you do not commit yourself to anything. The commitment is exclusively mine, a one-sided promise. But if you want to marry me and I'll back off, I'll have to compensate you with that amount of money. On the other hand, we have this," he said, going to the desk and taking out what looked like a file, as if it were a 200-page book, putting it in a piece of furniture next to Victoria. "It is the prenuptial agreement, where all the economic conditions of marriage are fixed. As soon as possible you must look for a lawyer, the lawyer you choose, to study that agreement and the other documents that I have given you. Not only will that lawyer certify that everything is honest and legal, but will advise you and tell you what is best for you, and eventually negotiate on your behalf with my attorneys. That is why it is important that you find a lawyer that you trust, so study the whole thing before you sign anything. But I can tell you that the agreement provides good financial compensation for you if you divorce me after at least 5 years of marriage, or if I divorce you at any time, even the day after the wedding. A millionaire compensation that will allow you to live as rich the rest of your life." Victoria was still shocked by the surprise, unable to react. She read over the papers in her hands, but she did not understand much and her hands trembled. "Why are you making fun of me? Why are you so cruel?" Victoria said, crying like a little girl. Do you think I'm so bad as to make fun of you in your situation? I'm not making fun of you. I do not want to hurt you, on the contrary. That's why I've put everything in writing, especially my promise of marriage notarized, and that's why I ask you to go to any lawyer in this city that you choose to review the documents and certify that they are authentic. And then I want you to come with your lawyer to meet me and my lawyers to close the deal before you sign it. Take all the printed documents and also this UBS memoir containing copy of all of them, he said, putting the small artifact in her hand. Look for a lawyer, Victoria, I will pay his fees, and you will see that everything is true, said William, serene and reassuring, even friendly. But I do not understand. You just met me. You does not know who I am, you does not really know anything about me. Why? Victoria asked angrily and still crying. Why do I want to marry you? I have my reasons and in time I'll explain, but this is not the best time. You have to assimilate everything we talked about tonight, and I know it's not easy. I can only tell you that I'm not crazy, even if it seems to be the opposite. William said and smiled wryly at the last words, and of course, I assure you that I am not dangerous and I do not want to do you any harm. And my offer, as I said, is honest. Victoria, you are a wonderful girl and you deserve something much better than what life has given you until now. Please, do not waste for fear the opportunity to end your suffering and that of your family. Victoria stared into his eyes, those green eyes that intimidated her a little with that intense and difficult to decipher look. And she felt that, somehow, he was bewitching her with the look. Victoria, I beg you to go home tonight and think about everything we have talked about. I beg you, that you accept that my driver take you to your house because you have to take all these documents. I ask you please that tomorrow you get a lawyer and take these documents for he to review, and you will understand what is at stake here. But above all I ask you to think everything calmly and without prejudice, which reflections on my proposal with cold mind. And when you are ready, we will speak calmly. I'll be waiting, I will not go anywhere, nor will I regret it, William said affectionately, almost charmingly. Victoria looked at him in silence, not knowing what to say to that strange man and his absurd and strange behavior. Here, dry your tears, William said, extending his arm and giving her a handkerchief. Allow me a minute, he added after she accepted the handkerchief and then went to the office door and opened it and called Joe. Please Joe, pick up those documents Miss Victoria has and take them to the car and then take her home. Joe hurried to comply, and Victoria walked behind him, as if she were in shock. William took Victoria's coat and walked over to her. Can I help you with the coat? Asked William. She nodded and she stood with her back to him so that he would put the coat over her, and when she felt the man's breath on the nape of her neck and his hands wrapping the coat on her body, Victoria shuddered as if she had felt a sudden freezing current. William slowly pulled away and she turned to look at him. Good evening, Victoria, William said, his eyes intense and disturbing. She opened her mouth to answer, but she could not, and he smiled sympathetically, and turned away from her to approach the mini bar in the office. Victoria walked to the door, but paused for a moment and turned to see William pour himself a swig of whiskey and then head for the window to see the view of London, as if he were not aware of what was around him and less of her. Then Victoria left. That night Victoria could not sleep, and over she turned on the light from the small lamp beside her bed and read some of the documents William gave her and she put there. Victoria remembered her mother, thought of her sister, remembered her family's problems, and recreated in her mind the images of her conversation with William. Sometimes she cried and sometimes she imagined what her life would be like if she accepted that absurd proposal. The next day, on a break from her job in the cafeteria, Victoria was seated on a flight of stairs in the alley behind the cafeteria, accessed by a door that connected the alley with the kitchen. Her two friends and co-workers Nancy and Harriet were smoking cigarettes, Harriet leaning against a wall and Nancy sitting on a box. All three wore their uniforms as waitresses. Victoria was thoughtful, as if she were in another galaxy, and paid no attention to what her friends were saying, who were laughing at anecdotes that had happened to them. Suddenly Victoria spoke when her friends paused in their conversation, their last laughter hardly extinguished. "A billionaire wants to marry me," Victoria said in a neutral voice, an expressionless expression on her face, as if she were commenting on the weather. Her surprised friends saw her and then laughed. "Yes, of course. And Prince Harry wants to marry me," exclaimed Harriet mockingly. "And I was proposed by Chris Evans," exclaimed Nancy, laughing. Victoria was serious and quiet. "Victoria, what's the matter?" Nancy asked, looking serious and worried. "The billionaire I told you about the other day, the one who helped Kate and me in the park, he proposed marriage to me, if that's a marriage proposal," said Victoria, who was still a little absent. "You're fucking crazy, Victoria." "Right?" Harriet said in disconcerted and incredulous. "No, I'm not kidding, but it certainly sounds like a joke. That man paid a year's rent for my apartment, helped me with Kate's case to the safeguarding, and then made me go to his headquarters, his luxurious Batcave, and there he offers to help me with all my problems, save my family and give me a fairytale princess life, if I marry him. But instead of a ring he gave me a mountain of legal papers drafted by his lawyers, of which I do not understand a word, and now I must take a lawyer to explain. But, that yes, I marry him, I will literally bathe in millions of pounds. I, a humble waitress. And I spent all night thinking about this, because, oh my God, help me, because I do not know what to do. I do not know what that man wants from me," Victoria exclaimed at last, her voice broken with emotion, and she burst into tears like a little girl, hiding her face in her hands. Nancy came over and sat down beside her, and began to caress her back as Victoria leaned back in her. "Easy, sweetheart. Easy," exclaimed Nancy, trying to comfort her. Harriet also came and put a hand on Victoria's head, stroking her hair, and Victoria continued to cry in distress, the day she began to think that her life was in the hands of William.